Nijal with Doubledown Guide Service up in Lake Tahoe. Take people fishing out on the lake. So starting in about March, we start fishing Lake Tahoe and get out there once the snow starts melting. Head pretty much right for the shallows, trying to get those rainbows and browns, huge Mackinaw out of less than 30 feet of water. That time of year, it's hard to beat a floating RAPALA, either in what we call Cheeto or Cop Car, but they have their own names. You come to Tahoe, you'll hear those names. That's going to put a lot of fish on the deck. You're going to get rainbows and browns, even large Mackinaw with those, in either the original or the scatter. Tahoe's very clear water, gin clear, and we do what we call a Tahoe setback. We got to put our lines 300 to 400 feet back behind the boat, depending on what the chop's doing, if we got clouds in the sky or whatnot. So really far setback to start with, and then you got to find out what bait you want to use and how fast that bait needs to go. Typically, we're going to run these anywhere from 2.5 miles an hour to 3.5 miles an hour, depending on currents and whatnot. Tried and true trout fishermen are going to have rod in hand and be ripping, imparting action to that lure constantly. Drives that fish crazy. It makes its prey drive kick in, and that's when you get the attack. Yeah, we'll see fish from the 10 to 16 inch, what we would call kind of small fish, but you're looking for fish in that 2 to 4 pound class on average. And I mean, I've seen browns as big as 9 pounds, rainbows about the same. I've seen max over almost 20 pounds in the shallows. So anything can happen when you're in there. One of the largest Mackinaws I've caught personally was mid-March and 20 feet of water. That was 18 pounds. We're talking, I think, a 34 inch range, somewhere in there. Yeah. So yeah, April, May, June, we're fishing shallows all the way. I'd say June is when the water starts warming up enough on the surface to where those fish are gonna head for deeper water. Then you're gonna be looking at those same species more often in 30 to 50, but June's about when I shift my focus towards lake trout. And that's gonna be the bread and butter for fishing on Lake Tahoe. It's got the biggest population of fish across the board. It's got the biggest fish also. The record in the lake's over 37 pounds. Last year, we caught a fish that was 43 inches and 25 pounds. That was the biggest one in the past 3 seasons on the lake. So hog hunting's one of my favorite things to do. If we're going hog hunting, we're gonna grab one of these G-RATT baits, the big Sneaky Pete in this AU color. Anything AU is gonna work really good. Guida's Sexy Shad, that always puts fish on the boat. But those are gonna be big fishing type of lures for me personally. I troll them for large max. If we're gonna be going for dinner, we're gonna throw a GULP minnow or even a real minnow behind some blades, and that would be hard to beat for some down rigging for Mackinaw. Typically when we're down rigging, we're going to see fish in that 20 to 25 inch range, 2 to 5 pounders. If we stick 3-4 limits, we'll probably see fish up to 8-9 pounds on average, just going for groceries. The limit on Lake Tahoe is 5 fish of any species. It used to be 5 fish, but only 2 Mackinaw, and they lifted that to where now you can go out and catch whatever you want, 5 fish per person. When we're fishing Mackinaw deep on downriggers, there's not a lot of bycatch involved. I have seen some things happen, but it's rare. So through our busy time of the year, it's actually really good Mackinaw fishing. It's the water's kind of stabilized for a while, and all of our fishing holes are a little more predictable by that time of year, fingers crossed. As fishermen, we know that sometimes it takes some tricks, so that's when we'll pull out this Procure, and trophy trout is blended with chewy chubs, which is one of the main forage species of Lake Tahoe. It's a very prevalent bait fish, and the trophy trout's gonna help you a lot. Also, these fish have been born and raised on shrimp. There's a Mesa shrimp in the lake that they've been eating since day one. So you throw some of this on, that's like mom's home cooking. You're gonna get results from that. If you ever come on my boat, you will see these being used every day. I'm kind of stay away from the hooks because I don't want to clean off that side. I just do a stripe down the back of my lures if I'm gonna grab a RAPALA down the back. That way when you get it, you can wipe it with a towel and you don't get your hooks all jammed up, but you can put as much as you want. Midsummer, we'll be trolling a lot of these. We're just trying to put fish on the boat, get everybody a turn at, a fun time, and maybe we could fill up a freezer. That's also when we're gonna start busting out the jigs from 1 to 4 ounces. Typically we'll use a P-line laser minnow. I like glow because we're going, 100 to 200 feet down. So anything you can get to kind of catch their eye. We'll stop on top of a school of fish that could be anywhere from up to 40 feet thick of a carpet of fish off the bottom, and that's when you're hoping they bite, because you show up to those and your clients get a little itchy if the fish start biting, and you got 4,000 of them down there. But usually P-line laser minnow, put a little bit of this on there, they're gonna have a hard time resisting that. I have spots that we go to on Lake Tahoe where these fish will be stacked indefinitely, and they're there now. If you show up to the nub and there's no fish there, you better worry. Once we get in about August, I'd say the Kokanee bite starts turning on pretty well. By then, most of us charter boats have a good idea of where the Kokanee are located in the lake. Kokanee salmon are actually a landlocked sockeye salmon, which were brought in, introduced to the lake, and they make a very good table fare. They also make very good bait fish for those large Mackinaw as well. So what we're doing is come August, we'll start Kokanee fishing. By September, Kokanee's wide open. We're doing pretty much Kokanee trips every morning. Limit style action. We don't have the biggest Kokanee, but we do have Kokanee up to about 19 inches. The biggest Kokanee I personally caught was out of Lake Tahoe was 21.5 inch. Yeah, it's about a 3-pound fish, I'd say. Yeah, they look like their ocean counterpart. So when we first start catching Kokanee, they're bright chrome, they have a blue or green back, they're white belly, I mean as salmon as it gets. I'd say by the end of September leading into October, we're gonna start seeing a pink line develop down the side of them. By the end of October, all these fish are gonna be bright red with a green head. The males all have this nasty kite jaw, teeth popping out everywhere. They look like something off Jurassic Park. So these salmon are all staging in South Shore because there's a river that comes out of Fallen Leaf Lake called Taylor Creek. Those fish, 90% of the salmon in Tahoe are spawning in Taylor Creek, and they stage right in front of the mouth of that, kind of off of Kiva Beach, for that later half of the summer. And once October 1st hits, the water flows increase and the fish start heading upstream to spawn. At that point, we're fading out of Kokanee. They're starting to get a little bit, beat up looking, and their meat gets a little bit mushier when they're red. So as these Kokanee start heading upriver, what they've done is they've attracted a lot of big fish into the area. So there's huge resident Mackinaw at this point that are just picking them off. We'll go and we'll catch fish up 15 to 25 pounds that have 5 Kokanee in their belly. So I only know this because I'm feeling their bellies. Generally, these fish are released off of my boat. Very rarely do I keep a trophy Mackinaw. Through October into November, we start getting back into that shallow water. The water temps are cooling. Those rainbows, browns, and large Macks are heading up into that less than 30-foot depth range, and they're feeding on a variety of minnows and kind of getting ready for that, cold snap that's getting ready to show up, and they're gorging before the season's quietly coming to an end for them. There's definitely fishing all year round in Tahoe. It's just you got to find somebody tough enough to take you out on a boat, shovel their boat. That could be a whole nother job. But through the winter, the fishing's pretty good as far as deep water Mackinaw goes. It stabilizes. You can typically get good fish through the winter. When I say deep water, we're talking anywhere from 100 to 200 feet, and targeting those fish on downriggers with fiberglass rods. We use all OKUMA line counter reels. That allows us to kind of replicate the same pattern across the board. We'll do our same setbacks on different, see what's working, and but we go with the OKUMA line counters just to keep everything very similar. And definitely a pretty good bass fishery in Lake Tahoe that's kind of on the hush, but not so much for you that know. You can head into the Tahoe Keys, and typically whatever your preferred bass tactics are going to work there. Once again, I like to pull these out. The Guida Sexy Shad puts a lot of fish up.
How big are we talking?
You're going to see fish in that 1 to 4 pound range. I have seen up to fish in the teens out of Tahoe. I've seen a 13 pounder there. Typically I'll catch about a 6 pound fish each season would be the biggest bass I see. Those bass, they're mixed in with large crappie, and there's bluegill in there as well that they eat on throughout their life. So if you like your bluegill swim baits or anything like that, those are popular. There's a pretty good population. There is some decent quality. I would say that the bass in Tahoe act a little different. They're in some very clear, cold water, so you're gonna have to put that into account. They're not spawning out here like they do out here in the valley or in the springtime. You're gonna find the spawn later even into June sometimes. They'll be fully bedded up for, same thing, 4 weeks or so. And they act very similar to what you would expect out of a bass. It's just, maybe your Minnesota guys would know a little bit more about what to do. It just depends on time of year too. When the water's real cold, the fish like to move up towards the lake because that's where the more turbulent water is. The back of the channels will freeze first. So as the season kind of changes, the fish move around throughout the Keys. A lot of times those fish in the very backs of the channels are small though. Once again, yeah, you can find the picture perfect spot and there's a bass there, but unless you're on your game,
Yeah.
Tahoe's, it's not an easy fishery, that's for sure, even when it comes to the bass. Lake Tahoe has a lot to offer for fishermen. That being said, I've seen the best fishermen I know get humbled out on that lake, and you got to put in time. Sometimes the fish are just not cooperative. Sometimes you can't find them. It's the same as most places, except for you got to be creative sometimes. Anybody that's looking to go out fishing, you can get a hold of me at doubledowntahoe.com or Doubledown Tahoe on Instagram. So I take up to 6 people on my boat. I do private groups only, so whether it's one guy or 6 people, I'll take you. Beginners are welcome. We take everybody out, provide everything other than your food and drinks and fishing license. Bring your own food. Yep, bring some sunscreen, a hat. Gets pretty warm out there. So you're welcome to bring as much beer as you'd like. Just drink responsibly. Typically we're running a 5-hour trip starting at about 6 a.m. to 11. In the peak season, we'll move it down to 5 to 10 a.m. to try and get a jump on the wind and some of those big boat crowds. I run morning, noon, and night. Yeah, whenever you want to go fishing, I do too. Once again, I'm Nijal with Doubledown Guide Service from Lake Tahoe. You can check me out on Instagram at Doubledown Tahoe and also online at doubledowntahoe.com.